Good morning, and welcome to week 4 now of the Kraken 11 power rankings. I can't believe we're already at goddamn week 4. 3 weeks in the books. Can't say that. I mean, I haven't pulled up the power rankings from week 1. I probably should, but I think a lot of these aren't exactly what we would have expected. Some teams that were expected to do well sitting at the bottom, and some teams that were expected to do poorly, moving up to the top there. So it's a bit of a mishmash, but when you look at the midfield, right, you have 11 through 5 are 1 and 2. Only 3 undefeated teams, only 1 2-1 team, which is pretty insane. And then only 1 0 3 team. So there's definitely everyone's still in play. Even Jay is still in play. That's not a bad points for. That's what, right around here ish. I'd say between 8 and 9. It's definitely out of a playoff spot if you're ranking that way, but just a couple of good weeks that could be coming up, and all of a sudden he's right in the thick of it. So I'd say everyone's in it right now. There's a couple that have a little tougher road, but might be getting a little bit easier in the weeks ahead. So we'll go through all that, but I just want to look at a couple of the high level overview of some of the matchups, some of the I guess marquee matchups highlighted, I'd say, by this one right here, which is the expansion team bowl, as pointed out by Zach yesterday, which I guess I wish there was a little bit more fanfare. I wish I'd thought of really highlighting that a little bit on Discord. That's a pretty cool matchup. Excuse me, sorry, it's got a little something in my throat there. But especially starting on Thursday. So we had Zach starting on Thursday with Debo going off for 25, which put Nolan in a little bit of a hole. But yeah, coming in through was obviously you had Ken Walker. I think Nolan's been playing the waiver game, but even through waivers, New England's a good defense to have. Even, I guess what I meant to say is just holding on to him or holding on to them for basically a season long defense. They're a good defense. I think they have some good point totals through most of their games so far. Against Miami, they put up 7. So I mean, this could be one that Nolan holds on to for the rest of the year. He also has Tampa Bay, which is one that I thought actually looked pretty good against the Eagles last night. For the I didn't get to watch the entire game, but because today's Jocelyn's birthday, and I wanted to be the one to get up with Natalie this morning. She wakes up super early, so I had to go to bed a little bit early. But it was the Bucks. I wasn't expecting the Eagles to lose, so I could afford to sit the second half of that one out. But yeah, just looking at the rest of the matchup here, Debo, I mean, this is a 6th round keeper, and he's done nothing but just produce the first few weeks. His floor has been 10, 21, 25. I mean, that's exactly what it's like, the best you could ask for, really, from a 6th round keeper. My 6th round keeper was Miles Sanders, who hit his season high with about 16, which is just not really coming through. But that's putting it on me, and this is about the expansion team bowl right now. So what I've been really liking about Zach, I know I'm ignoring the winner a little bit. I'll get to Nolan's in a second. But what I've been really liking about Zach's team, I've been really liking how Pittman's played out. This has been super consistent. 21, 11, 13. I mean, I don't remember where he took Pittman, but I think he's outperformed his value, at least considering the other guys that were drafted around him. So that's been a huge boon for him. Diggs, I think, has been basically just as solid as Debo, which is, I guess, a little bit not what you want to see from your second. You want him to do a little bit more, but you can't really complain about this kind of production. Especially 13-7, you're talking about 32 targets, over 10 targets per game, and 2 games with over 100 yards. He just needs to get back to getting some touchdowns, which should happen. Especially against Miami, I would expect at least one out of Diggs. You could probably get one bomb out of Davis in there too for Morganelli's team when we get to that. But I think was it 2 weeks ago now was the trade for Rashad White, which I don't think it wasn't. I wouldn't call it a head scratcher. I think it was fine, but it's definitely tough to trade running back depth, especially with the amount of injuries that are happening. And I believe that Barkley. I don't remember if Barkley had been injured yet. I'm guessing probably not, but maybe I really truly don't remember. I'm not gonna dig into it right now, but definitely having to start Chuba Hubbard is basically you're on your back foot for this matchup, which is definitely tough. Though he pretty much scored the same as Derrick Henry, but you know what I'm trying to say here is that that's really tough. And trading away Rashad White, granted, I don't think he had a good game either, but you know, a workhorse back to a guy who's only getting 2 touches. How many rushing attempts did he have? Like 1? Yeah, he had 1 rushing attempt, 2 catches. I mean, yeah, he put these are flex numbers, but that's like at best. And he's not spelling Miles Sanders. They didn't sign Miles Sanders to a 3-year 15, 10, 10 between 10 and 15 million deal, you know, for him to sit on the sideline. So that's how I feel about that. I mean, Swift, really glad for him that panned out. That was looking like a 3-headed monster of a backfield, possibly 4, depending on injuries. But Swift has really shown up in the first, I guess not the first week because he didn't touch the ball, but the last 2 weeks, he's been really good. Thielen is going to be starting next week, absolutely, for this team. I mean, he is getting all the looks. The first week, obviously, he didn't, but the last 2, sorry. Woo! Okay. I have something in my throat, and it's so annoying, but in any case, let's keep moving on through here. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, Thielen has shown up. Zeke actually outperformed Ramondre at an efficiency standpoint, which is getting a little bit concerning for me, being a Ramondre owner. But yeah, I'm not concerned about this team going forward. It's just a matter of really plugging in that running back deficiency, and that really is going to come when when Barkley returns. So he's just got to stay in the race, and there's plenty of time, so not worried about that. Nolan's team, this is okay. I think these receivers are underperforming this week, so that's 2 out of 3 weeks where his receivers have underperformed. I still like Christian Kirk, but Lockett and Scary Terry I think Scary Terry will be okay. But there's no true stud here, and that's the concerning thing about the team is that there's no stud wide receiver, which is just so important in today's football, especially in today's fantasy. Like, you can have all the running backs, and thank God for Ken Walker going off, because that really helped propel him to the win here. But it's good to have this consistency with the running backs. I understand, but you need to have to be able to compete against some of the top teams. When we're talking about a Jewish McCaffrey, and you're talking about a Crew the Almighty, and then you even talk about Freaky, who's now at 1-2, but still has an explosive team. Kraken combined, Tor, Morganelli, he has an explosive team. To be able to consistently compete with them, you're going to need to be able to match them at their peaks too. And I don't think this team is constructed to match teams at their peaks just yet. But I think Nolan has pieces with these just insane amount of running back. If it were me, I'd be looking to make a trade for a wide receiver upgrade, especially when you get into bye weeks. So we'll see what he ends up doing. But that's just my thoughts on that. I spent way too much time on this, but this was the featured matchup in my opinion, and I think this might be a little segment that I do going forward, having a featured matchup and then highlighting it a bit. A little bit more thorough than the others to start things off before we even get into power rankings. So with that, congratulations to Nolan, finally getting his first win of the season, climbing all the way up to 8th place, and really not too far away from hitting a playoff spot. So for week 4, I think he has on tap a matchup with, we'll find out here, with Freaky. So that would be an exclusive concepts matchup, the exclusive concepts bowl, which would be a fun one to highlight. But Nolan's already been in a highlight one, so we'll have to look at what's another good matchup here. One that would be a highlight. It could be these two seller teams. I want to highlight me and Jake just because we have a jersey bet on the line, and I don't think there are any other jersey bets going on. So maybe I'll make that a high. We'll find out. I'll wait on that one for a little bit. That's not important right now. What's important is getting into the power rankings. So I think we should start is looking sort of at the bottom here. Look at that waiver budget. I guess if you don't spend money, then you're not gonna win games. Who would have thought? What a concept. But anyway, sitting at the bottom, I think last week I had Jenny at the bottom. Jenny lost to McGovern, who had a chain sitting on the bench, which I wanted to look at I wanted to point out some of the high scores. So congratulations to everyone who had A-Chain, Mostert, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and then maybe a little congratulations to to Ken Walker there as well. Just the top flex scorers of the week, and winner, 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 winner. So they all helped their teams win and winner. So having the top flex scorers obviously is a winning. Of course, A-Chain was on the bench, so that didn't really matter. But anyway, let's get out of that and let's come over here. And I'm a little bit everywhere, I think, so far on this power rankings video here. But who really cares? You're all just here to listen to the soothing sounds of my voice. So in that case, why don't we just head to what I think is the bottom team right now? And I'm going to go with Stacks. We're going to go Robert down here at the bottom. And I outlined, yes, I did. In fact, I'm going to put Stacks way down here in his own little Stacks. That's the seller, right? And we'll say seller. We don't need to explain that any further. And we can even make it a color. Why don't we make that a little color? And what's it, gray? Let's make it a little gray. There we go. Stacks and brushes. And there we go. So don't really need to talk much about Robert's team here. He's had a lot of really bad luck when it comes to injured players, especially losing Nick Chubb. That's really tough. And then Cam Akers, that whole situation really sucks. Brandon Ayuk missed a game, also sucks. Gainwell has lost his job to Swift. Even though Gainwell, I think, did fine. He had a good game. But overall, when you look at some of these numbers, they're just, the efficiency's not there, and Swift has had it. So box score wise, I mean, it's pretty clear, that Swift is the guy, and Gainwell is going to be back to the number 2, which I get. But he'll still be flex worthy, in my opinion. These are some bad numbers, but he's still flex worthy. He'll still get his touches, and I mean, he's been with the team long enough, and he's all that stuff. He's flex, but he's not going to be a running back, an RB2, and this team lacks an RB2. This team, it lacks a stud receiver. Amari Cooper is the closest thing to a stud receiver who has games like this from time to time. And look at that schedule. But if you actually look past the green, San Francisco is a good defense. They just got lit up by Puka Nacua a couple weeks ago, so that's inflated. But Indy doesn't have a good pass defense. Seattle has a bad pass defense. Arizona, I think, is actually better than 19th. It's hard to throw against them. But, I mean, yeah, Deshaun Watson should have a good few weeks coming up, and so should Amari Cooper. But that said, there's not much here. Geno Smith, what did he do? He put up 20, right? He put up 17. So his ceiling was 26, which I think was that against me last week? Did I play? Yeah, I think it was week 2 is when I played Robert. But yeah, it's a low ceiling. It would be good if if he averaged that, he'd be fantastic. That's like Patrick Mahomes almost, but he doesn't. And there's a big emphasis on the rush game there. Seattle. I've just tried to avoid Seattle. I don't want any part of Seattle except for Ken Walker, and maybe even Charbonnet. I would say Charbonnet because I'm French Canadian, but I'm guessing Charbonnet isn't. But anyway, there's not much on this team. So this is the seller, and by seller, can you actually think of SELLER or CELLAR? I was thinking more the latter, but I guess the former would work as well. So Stacks is in the basement down there, and if we go out to the teams and we look for the next step up, I mean it's got to be Jenny, right? It's got to be Jenny who's been so underwhelming that the team name Earthslingers is gone. It's now maybe next year, and well, I mean, in order to be good next year, you need to get some keepers or picks. But I don't think she's ready to trade just yet. Not that I would know. But anyway, so we're going to put Jenny here at the bottom. But out of the cellar where Stacks is. So the reason why she actually moved up a rank is because she has some key pieces returning, right? First thing is Alvin Kamara is going to be back now. Cooper Kupp is going to be back in 2 weeks. I don't think Cooper Kupp has lost his job to Nakua. I really don't. Nakua he's looked good, but I mean, I didn't watch a ton of the Rams game. I did watch some at the expense of the Eagles game because, as my job is commish, I have to see what's going on around the league. But basically on Buccaneer drives, I put on the other game just to see what was going on. But Nakua's looked good, but I thought Nakua has done really, really well. And this is the obvious statement, is that he's done really well playing his role as Cooper Kupp. But specifically what I think he's done well is finding open space. As everyone knows, his athleticism isn't off the charts, but he's a smart guy with good hands. That's what we've been able to see, and he's been able to get into the tiniest little pockets, and Stafford's been able to find him, and he's been able to make tough catches when he needs to, and he's been really reliable with it. So that's what I've seen from him overall, and that's exactly what Cooper Kupp does. So one of the thoughts I've had is I actually think that Tutu Atwell is going to be more viable in that offense when Cooper Kupp comes back. If he comes back at full health, I think the better guy to own would be Atwell because he's a totally different dimension than Nakua and Kupp. Nakua and Kupp are going to be basically, they do the same type of thing, which is great for Stafford. Stafford's going to have two options that can do that same thing. I know there are some people who say that, oh yeah, the one lines up, on the outside. Nakua lines up on the outside. Kupp is more of a, in the slot guy. I've also seen Nakua in the slot. I've seen Atwell on the outside. I think what ends up happening is that they're both just such similar receivers in their style that a lot of that target volume is going to come off of Nakua and onto Kupp. So if I'm McGovern who has Atwell, I am not worried about Kupp's return. If I'm Morgan Ellie, I wouldn't say I'm worried about Kupp's return. I think Nakua still does fine, but it's just going to be a sad drop off from those first 2 weeks. I think we'll see even more of what we saw last night. Those kind of numbers seem more on the high end of what we'll see from Nakua, and then maybe plus a touchdown here and there. But in any case, that's a little bit off topic. But getting to Jenny's team is the reason why it's not the worst is, again, Alvin Kamara comes back. If he does come back and is close to prime Kamara, that is a huge asset to have at running back. And that's going to be important, obviously, come the bye weeks. But I mean, that could be. This team is in desperate need of flex help. Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall, I'm still convinced, are okay as having both in occupying both running back slots. I really think something's going to need to happen at quarterback, but I hope that waits one more week because I have the Kansas City defense. I hope it will one more week before Zach Wilson gets canned. But I mean, it's just so painful when you look at Drake London. That's just such wasted talent. He's so good, but there's this zero aerial attack in Atlanta. I mean, Ritter is he's not a good passer, and Drake London's going to waste there. Kenny Pickett is a lot better passer than Ritter is, and I think Pickens is being held back just a little bit there. But these are some good numbers. This is good, wide receiver 2 numbers. Basically capped out at wide receiver 2, more like a 2-3 kind of guy. Godwin has been really frustrating to watch. I mean, I was high on Godwin. I thought he'd be a good safety valve for Baker, but Baker is going to sling it like Baker has done before. And Mike Evans is reaping the benefits there. So I feel like everyone is perennially down on Mike Evans, and he just keeps showing up. So congrats to Jake on picking up Mike Evans. Solid pick. Probably his best pick of the draft. But in any case, this team has a chance if Lamar Jackson remembers that Mark Andrews exists and gets him a little bit more volume. I think it's more of Zay Flowers is really good at short, medium, and long as far as depth of pass. I don't even know the word I'm trying to look for. I'm not going to dwell on it, but Zay Flowers is going to occupy pretty much any type of route, which is really, really good. But in any case, that's why this team's not at the very bottom. There is still some hope for Jenny. She just needs to, forget about being a parent and spend more time on the waiver wire to fill out this team. But that's a joke. Obviously, you can't really do that. But Yeah. So that's why Jenny's out of the basement, but still pretty close to the bottom. Looking at the next team, this is where it starts to get super murky, right? I'd say the next tier of teams is probably McGovern and Jay. I might look at McGovern's first because I know he had A-Chain, who he had that crazy. That is an insane projection for A-Chain next week. Already up to 11. Yeah, I mean he could do it. I really liked A-Chain. I really want him in the draft, and I'll never let it go that I just barely missed out on him and then ended up with Anthony Richardson instead. I think I'll say it on every single episode of these damn power rankings too. But let's take a look at this team here. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to make that step. This ain't it. 20, 12, 16. That is below what you find on waivers. That's just bad. That's how you lose fast. But DeAndre Hopkins, a guy that I was looking forward to having, knowing I would never have a chance anyway. But he ended up getting kept, so it didn't matter. But still not doing anything. It's because Tannehill just is done. Tannehill is completely fried, but that O-line is awful. Nico Collins, I like Nico Collins. I'm kind of surprised actually at how bad his last week was. I'd still hold on to Nico. I think he's going to be a serviceable wide receiver 3 for the rest of the season, but McGovern really needs Waddle to be alpha, be his wide receiver 1, which is going to be tough. It's going to be definitely tough to have Waddle be wide receiver 1 when there's just so much on that offense. The ball needs to go around to pretty much anybody. But considering where McGovern was not that long ago, he's got basically a workhorse back. Oops, don't want to do that. But Ford is here. I mean, Ford has got the 10 attempts there. I mean, actually, I thought he'd have more touches, but he's getting a good share of the volume, and he's getting the points out of it. That efficiency is pretty bad, but I think he'll be okay. He'll be all right. Kyle Pitts, I've read so much about how Kyle Pitts is every manager's worst nightmare, that you can't bench him, and he is underperforming. He's not underperforming waivers, but he's pretty much basically a waiver guy. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have Ferguson, who's gotten more points than him. Woo! But in any case, I think considering where McGovern was just like a week and a half ago, he's in a good position now, especially being 1-2. One more week and then Taylor will be back, so he needs to be able to somehow beat Elliott. Good luck. But I mean, I think Mims is going to carve out a role. I keep seeing the Deshaun Jackson comparison, and I maybe as a player, but as far as stat wise, I'm not seeing that just yet. I like him. I think he'll be good, but I think he's actually got some, I wouldn't say good depth, but he's got not the worst depth you could have, again, considering the position he was at. I love Tutu Atwell, but he's going to need to. I'm going to need to be right about him for him to be useful on McGovern's team. But there's just a lot of question marks here, and I'm sure some of them will hit and some of them will miss. So that said, I think I'm going to put McGovern. I'll just go to teams or to people names now. I don't know. That doesn't look right. I need to. Well, let me do this. I'm going to do a little bit of that fill. I'm going to go by their actual Kraken given names. So we're going to do maybe next year and JKDFC. Cool. All right. So we can now move on. And what are some other teams? What would be the next set of teams? I don't think any of these teams are the next lowest. Right? Let me take a look. I don't think so. I like Zach's team. I already went over that enough. But like I said, I am nervous about the running back situation. But he's got enough talent at wide receiver that I think he's okay. Kirko Chains is going to be good at QB. So done. done. These are done. Is Jay really the next one? Oh yes, with Mike Williams out. I forgot about that. But I mean, even so, uh, you plug in Jerry Judy. That's a tough wide receiving core. Yeah, Jay needs to get rid of Michael Carter. He needs to get rid of James Robinson. I mean, at this point, I think guys on waivers are better. I understand. I tried to understand holding on to them, because there wasn't anything else out there at the time. But I think it's time to make some moves, and I think Jay will. Maybe I'm holding out hope, but Deontay Johnson on IR is really hurtful. But he'll come back. I think Deshaun Watson, I think I said earlier, is going to have a good few weeks. Let's look at here. San Fran is going to be tough. Crazy that wide receivers are some of the highest scoring. Was like sixth, highest to get award or something like that. But then quarterbacks are at 30th. That's crazy. But I might want to look into that a little bit more. But Josh Jacobs had another rough game. I mean, 10 points is not. I mean, this is brutal. But the touches are there, so you just gotta hope that it's a pretty soft schedule, that he's able to rack up some points. But that's a little bit tough. James Conner looked really good. He broke off a few good gains, and he's getting just he's absolutely dominating touches is what I'm trying to say. Kelsey's Kelsey. So there is hope. I definitely think for Jay to get out of there, but I don't think that team is any better than James White babies. I don't think it's better than. Well, I already declared that he's not better than any of those, and not better than any of these. So I'm gonna put McDonald's. You guys see Devontae Adams drop a 40-piece McNugget on his head? That was pretty sweet. On Sunday night, I stayed up for that whole thing. But anyway, so McDonald's fine dining. That needs another L, doesn't it? Let's get the. There it is. There it is. McDonald's. All right, so these four are now covered. So who's next? I'm gonna write down 12. Stacks 12, 11, 10. How are you guys feeling about 12 team league? And also, how are you guys feeling about the amount of personally, as far as the roster spaces? I'm really happy with the number of roster spaces. I'm glad we didn't get rid of a wide receiver or a flex spot. I think that this depth is really good. I think it challenges people to look a little bit deeper and do a little bit more research, and it depends on how competitive you want to be in fantasy football in general. But I do this kind of fantasy sports I've been doing since 2004, so I just enjoy doing this kind of stuff, obviously. So to me, I enjoy that. If you want something a little bit more casual, I can see how it would be frustrating, or not frustrating. It would be just not worth it, I guess, to try and look deeper and find sleepers and yada yada fantasy football jargon and keywords and stuff like that. Anyway, so number 8, we have to look at Freaky. We have to look at Nolan. We have to look at Morganelli. We have to look at me, actually. Let me see here. My team is one of those anomalies right now where I mean I have the least points again. I have the third most points scored, so third place does make sense, but the stability and true depth of my team is a little bit scary. I almost want to put myself down here. I'm gonna. Here's the thing. All right, how much room do I have here? If you could put these teams in tiers, if I were to denote tiers, I would say this is red tier, orange tier, go Q's. Q's won again. And then the next tier is going to come right after these guys. And it's going to be, in my head, I have the tier as being 1, 2, 3, 4. But that's the sort of, that is probably biased if I'm already making that judgment without looking at the teams. I mean, I have looked. I know all these teams. Are you kidding me? I already know like all of them. No, I do really like Nolan's depth. Oh, did Nolan? Oh, I already went over this. Yeah, we both started doing fantasy at the same year. But let's see. Who is eighth? That's the thing. Who is eighth? Am I the worst of that tier? Is Nolan the worst of that tier? Is Freaky the worst of that tier? I would never put neither Chris or Elliot are out of the question. Is Jake the worst of the tier? Jake has no quarterback. He has 2 quarterbacks, but he also has no quarterbacks. He has. I like Rashid Rice. Rashid Rice could be is flex viable, though it's just that's scary. But Chiefs as a whole struggled against Jacksonville, so I'd give him a pass on that. So omitting that, he's got some decent amount of targets. It's just scary to have a wide receiver for Kansas City. But he hasn't had Eckler for weeks. Eckler played week 1, right? He hasn't had him for week 2 or week 3. That's the thing. Like, Jake has managed to go 2-1. He's gone 1-1 without Eckler. And Evans is a stud. Olave looks so good. Fields looks so bad. And Dak is Dak, right? I mean, you can't hold on to Dak. There's better guys on the waiver wire. Madison finally showed up, right? So look at that. Look at these touches. 25 touches, and if he didn't have stone hands, he could have had 26 or 27. I think it was only one drop, and then there was a fumble that was a fumble, but then they called it not a fumble. But the point is, Madison's getting the touches. We'll see what happens when Cam Akers comes back, but I'm not totally convinced that Madison won't just dominate touches. He might lose a couple, but Cam Akers might just be a 3, 4, 5 touches a game kind of guy. And I think maybe 2 or 3 of those come at the expense of Madison. So Madison is a solid RB2, 3, I think. And then James Cook's durability is something that I've questioned in the past. We are only 3 weeks in. Those are great RB2 numbers. So RB1, RB2, RB2, 3, that's solid. Gibson's in the doghouse. He fumbled again. Johnson is now actually going to get some opportunity with Mike Williams, out for season. So there's some wide receiver depth starting to grow here, which is great for Jake. And having 3 viable running backs to be able to fill, I think that's solid. He just needs some help at quarterback. And he might disagree. And I like Musgrave too. So I don't think Jake is the worst of that group. I think I would. Jeez. This is so tough. That is so tough. But I think I gotta put Captain Krusty's. I think I have to put Captain Krusty's Kraken Crunch, which I know makes no sense, but this is why it's my power rankings and not just looking at the standings. And people have I've been asked, how do you even figure out who's in what? It's kind of like I like to look at the players sort of in a way of how they're doing now, how I expect they'll be doing later, and how the team is set up for bye weeks. It's not like I'm intricately going through. It's it's sort of like a gut and just how I view things. So I think just how I'm viewing it, which team would I rather have? I'd rather have James Whitebaby's team over Krusty's Kraken Crunch. I'd rather have my team over it. I think of all these teams, it's this one I would want the least. Not that it's a bad team. I just think it's the lowest of the next tier. So, oops, that's still orange. Maybe I should be writing these in color. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna incorporate a little bit of color, but I am not gonna do that just yet. Let's do. Can we even see if I write that here? Yeah, okay. Let's do Cap'n Krusty KK. Right? That'll work. No one will take offense to that. So that's why I have it number 8. And then based on that conversation, we'll move up to number 7. Now, this gets harder and harder each time. So I really got to look at Freaky's team because I haven't maybe I have some bias from last year, but Gibbs has not shown up. That's not what you got out of a first round pick, unless a lot of them actually have been that. But Javonte Williams, I'm just high on Javonte Williams. I think just the volume of touches, I think he'll eventually get there, but he's just not getting into the end zone. And that's obviously a problem. I'm high on Kyron Williams, but he didn't show up either. So this is just a tough team, but this is just so elite. It's hard to look away from that. Waller should show up. There's a bunch of these guys that should show up, but this running back depth should be good, but it's just not there. They didn't show up last week. So how exactly good are these guys? Right? Kyron Williams is the guy. They showed him. They utilized him heavily in weeks 1 and 2, and they tried to use him even more. I mean, that's 7 receiving targets. That was a note all night, is that Stafford couldn't find him for whatever reason. So I am confident in this team going forward. Definitely not a 7th place team, and definitely not 7th. In my opinion, they're not a 7th place team. I wouldn't put them 7th in my power rankings. I think I would be looking right now. I'm just looking between James White babies, Ingy Bingy, and myself. Morgan Ellie's team is way too strong to be putting that to even be considering down here. Yeah, there's too much talent on this roster, so he's not going down there. I think. Let me take a look here. Stevenson's got to break out. Tank Dell broke out. 2 is here. Anthony Richardson will be back. There's no running back depth on this team whatsoever. This might be some of the worst running back depth in the Kraken. It's so bad. That's such a bad running back depth. I'm gonna put it high. But what's good about the running back depth, Keefton. Ooh, that's a tough to write. But why it's tough to put this team in 7th is the explosiveness of the receivers and the potential of the 2 running backs that are here. Stevenson was great last year. Sanders is heavily utilized in this offense. So there's a lot of volume. There's a lot of volume here. And a guy like CeeDee Lamb, a guy like Devontae Adams can blow up at any time. I don't think it's going to be nearly as frequent for a guy like Tank Dell to explode. I think he's more of a, 7-8 targets, 5 to 7 catches and 60, 50 to 80 yards a game kind of guy. But I don't know. I've watched some of his catches. He does have some explosiveness, but he is. So my wife is super pregnant, and I think he weighs like 10 pounds more than her. Like, that's really small. So you got to worry about the longevity of someone like him. Michael Thomas, I think his value goes down with Jameis Winston. I think Rashid Shaheed's value actually stays about the same. He didn't see the ball at all, though, which is really concerning. But Jameis Winston's the QB now. Jameis Winston loves to just air the ball out. He loves to, but he might be a different passer now. That now that he's matured a little bit. So I guess I'd say the jury's out. But, Thomas did have a bunch of catches and targets in the second half of that game. So it's interesting. 2 weeks ago, Michael Thomas had 9 targets in the first half, and it's like 7 catches in whatever, and then had 0 targets the rest of the game. And last week, I think he had like 2 targets in the first half, and then had 7 catches in the second half. So if he can just put together 2 good halves, I think he becomes a good wide receiver 3 right now. He's just sort of on the flex. A good flex. I'd say he's a good flex. but still a flex. Josh Downs had 12 targets. Ferguson had 7 targets again. Tua is the MVP favorite right now. So there's a lot of explosive. This is a boom or bust team, honestly. When I look at it, this is a boom or bust team. So I mean, it remains to be seen how this one will play out. Hopefully, Anthony Richardson comes back soon. But for now, I can't in good conscience go any higher than 7th for High Kraken Chieftain. High Kraken Chieftain. I thought I hit league already. Oh, it's just loading. Okay. So that brings us to number 6. Number 6. So now we're going between, I think James White Babies and T-Bib are the next two. Which team do I like more? Again, my concerns are wide receiver on this team. There are a lot of good receivers, or not. Okay, that's definitely an overstatement. There are some serviceable wide receivers to be found on waivers. He picked up KJ Osborne, who got a touchdown, but Robert Woods. There's a guy I like. I like Michael Wilson. He had a pretty good week too. I'm going to be probably putting in a waiver in for him, but I'm sure some of you will as well. And if not, then maybe I'll get him for cheap. Who knows? But there is some talent out there. There's DJ Chark, who finally had a whole bunch of targets. If you look at go by targets here. Robert Woods, who I just dropped. I mean, he's averaging 8 targets a game. I dropped him because I personally don't see it going forward. I think Tank Dell has taken over CJ Stroud's. I don't want to say the number one. I don't think he's number one by any means, but I think he's going to become the safety valve, and that was kind of how I was expecting it to go. Robert Woods is more of a rental. I was not expecting to use him very long on my team, basically until CJ Stroud got the confidence to expand beyond just throwing to the veteran wide receiver. So that narrative is starting to play out a little bit, but there's some serviceable guys in here, but none of them are that explosive talent that Nolan needs. And I think Jake, his team, does have that explosive potential. So I think I got to put, the explosive, I mean, again, wide receiver, there's not a whole ton here, like I said. But Josh Allen, if he shows up, he could totally cover for that. But I think for now, this is like a real toss-up. I'm going to put James White Babies here. Again, I still think these are all in the same tier. James White Babies. And then, since I already did my Jake analysis, my T-Bib analysis, I'm going to put T-Bib right here. And then in my head, I already know exactly what these are going to look like, but I'll go through my mental analysis of them just to make sure that I have this right in my own head anyway. Come on, let's open that up in the league. So my 4th right now, I'm looking at Freaky's team because the running back depth is concerning. AJ Dillon looks just not good. He looks so slow. He's waiver fodder, expensive waiver fodder, but he's just got to go. Khalil Herbert is never going to regain, unless there's an injury to Roschon Johnson, never going to regain top form or lead back duties there. So those two guys are, I guess you can't drop them, but they just have to rot on your bench. So you look at Gibbs, Javonte, and Kyron, which I like all 3 of them, but they need to show up. But there's plenty of time for them to show up for Freaky. All Freaky needs to do is make it into the playoffs. So I'd still say, just with that big question mark all over the running backs, so there's a new color here, and we're gonna go to blue, and I'm gonna put this as Antonio Gibson Hitman Reborn at number 4. At number 3, we're gonna have Kraken Combined Tour. I already know that because he's simply just not at the level of Chris or Elliott. But let's just take a look at the team. Give it that. analysis that we like to do on the power rankings. So this is scary. Just look, just going straight down. Mahomes, Jefferson, Devontae Smith, Puka Nacua. Again, I have concerns about Nacua after Cooper Kupp comes back. He put up like 12 points, 11 points. Like, that's good. That is still very, especially for a rookie. That's very good. These projections are way out of whack. Yahoo needs to definitely fix that. I'd put him in the 10 range. I thought, what did he have, like 14 projected? It was something stupid. Yeah, that was way, way too high. Everyone knew there was going to be some regression, and I think he's still going to settle into more of what we saw last night again than what we saw in the first 2 weeks. Very, very good. Great story, fun story. Not for me. I just wanted to gouge my eyes out. But in any case, I like this running back room a bit. I really don't hate this. Jameson Williams news. What we got? He returned to the facility, ineligible, blah, blah, blah. So he's returned to the facility, probably make some more bets. Rehabbing a hamstring injury. Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, I love him, but couldn't keep him. Can't, obviously couldn't draft him. Anyway, so running back room is solid. Pierce, maybe I've been too high on Pierce. I don't know. I knew he had some problems with efficiency last year. That O-line is absolutely horrific. I mean, this is consistent, but consistently bad. But I love Brian Robinson's looked really good. This is an outlier week. Even so, look at that, 7 yards per carry. Look at that awful game script. He put up 8 points, and the team only scored 3. I mean, Brian Robinson is that guy. He's my second favorite RB here. ETN is, we have a 9:30 in the morning game. Cool. But yeah, ETN is the guy. I was hoping Bigsby would cut into his shares a bit more, but he didn't. But this is a very well-rounded team. Gabe Davis in the flex. Give me some more of that. I love that. Pierce in the flex. I love that too. Let's see. Well, some guys are going to hit waivers. Waiver, not waiver. Biggest waste of 51 fab in my entire life. In fact, I mean that's worse than Chris's 53 on Taysom Hill. Kendra Miller I like, but we'll see. It just depends on how that backfield looks after Kamara comes back. I think it'll take us another 2-3 weeks to really understand what that'll look like. So I think this team does lack depth, but it's extremely explosive for the starters. So, and none of them. The first bye week is Dameon Pierce, who really cares. That he can be easily swapped out with someone like Kadarius Toney, maybe in flex. So there's really no concerns until week 9. Week 10 is going to be brutal, but I like this team's outlook, and I like how explosive it is on the starters. But I'm going to do Kraken. Oops, that's not the right color either. This is the one I want. Kraken combined tour, which puts number 2. Number 2 is I'm sorry, I'm like treating you guys like I treat Natty Bev. Holy cow. All right. Let's get to Chris's team, because this is who I have as my number 2. And this is not for any performance necessarily last week that knocked him down, but he's down because Elliot's team is insane. It's got a high floor and also retains a lot of boomer bust, like Raheem Mostert type of guys. So here's where I'm at with Chris's team. Ridley's now put up a dud in the last 2 weeks. Garrett Wilson, he's still. I'm not as concerned about Garrett Wilson. I think the Jets will fix. Will they? That's the thing. Do the Jets? I keep seeing things like the Jets are 1 QB away from having a Super Bowl caliber team, and I just don't really buy that. Do I? Actually, do I? Huh. I felt a little gross after saying no. So maybe I do. I do think this team actually could be a Super Bowl contender with a good team, with a good quarterback. But I think what a term that gets used in baseball for guys who are really good in the minors but just cannot make it happen in the majors. They call them like quad A players, meaning they're above AAA but not MLB, so A. So quad A players. I feel like Zach Wilson is a quad A player, good in college, will never does not have it for the NFL. So he's that, again, quad A type of guy. But this target volume is still good for Garrett Wilson. I'm not super concerned about him, especially he's cheap enough as a keeper. Yes, I know Chris was looking forward to having him as, I think he said like a top 5 or top 3 or like top 1 wide receiver. I think even with who would be his best quarterback? Who would Garrett Wilson want as quarterback? Probably not like a Tua. Probably my next thought would be like Josh Allen. This is like independent of like their receiving core, just as a QB in New York. It wouldn't be Burrow. Justin Herbert, I think, would be a good fit for Garrett Wilson. So if he had like a Justin Herbert type guy, I think that would be really good for him. Yeah. And the more I say it, I think that would be perfect. So if he had a Justin Herbert type guy, that's when you see Garrett Wilson as like a top 5 wide receiver. Speaking of top 5 wide receivers, look at Keenan Allen's projection of 17 points. That's nuts. I mean, look at this. 41. These target volumes are insane. 39 through so he's 13 a game. Is that right? Yeah, 13 a game. Really, really solid pick. And I feel like that was actually for Chris, and he might have to correct me on this. I think it was near like the latter stages of the preseason where he's like, I kind of like Keenan Allen. And I think I'm actually going to take Keenan Allen early. And then he just grew and grew and grew on him, picked him, and what a hell of a pick that was. Really filling in that spot as alpha wide receiver on this team. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He's known as like a guy who's always injured, and he's had a couple of injury-plagued seasons, but he's actually had a couple of full seasons too. So there's no reason that he can't do that again. And I expect he'll continue to just dominate target share, because this guy, Keenan Allen, is one of the best route runners in all of football, and he's always going to find a way to get open, and that's just going to be really good. Really good for Chris. So, and he's going to be getting Christian Watson and Aaron Jones back, I think. I mean, we've been wondering that for a while. Did not practice. Did Aaron Jones practice? Would have been limited. So they'll come back soon, probably just in time for Zach Moss to become the backup for Jonathan Taylor. I do think Taylor he comes back to the Colts, and he regains RB1 duties. But it's a very solid team. I think he flexes Laporta now. I think in a perfect world for him, when Zach Moss is gone, you have Bijan, Aaron Jones. Your flexes are Laporta and we'll call it Christian Watson. And then you have these 3 guys. I mean, that's just an all-around devastatingly strong team. And I know I had the top 4. I don't have the top 4 in the same tier. So this is going to be crew. This is the elite tier. Crew at number 2, which puts number 1 at our 2-time champion of highest scoring, and that's going to be boop. I ruined it. All right, Jewish Mick C. There we go. Let's see what we got here. Sorry, I had to check my phone for a second. So we'll go to Jewish McCaffrey. And we're just going to look at this devastating team that just dropped look at that, 165 points a game on average through 3 weeks. Hurts is like a lock for a rushing touchdown every single week. He's been doing this with Jamar Chase being ass for 2 out of 3 weeks. Can you believe that? And now he's back into form. That's 23 points. And so he also did that with Josh Reynolds putting up 0. But Christian McCaffrey is a 20-point lock every week. Tony Pollard is going to be pretty much the RB2. I think at this point he's getting just fed. These are some just insane usage numbers. I think I commented on that on the power rankings last week. Gaps. There are gaps in this team though. I don't think it's as well rounded as it should be for the number 1 team. Gaps are primarily at wide receiver. The wide receiving core is in my opinion, is actually quite weak. But just the explosiveness of Chase, Hurts, CMC. I mean, basically the keepers. I mean, those are insane group of keepers. And then Raheem Mostert until. I mean, that's insane. That's so crazy. I mean, you want every piece of this offense you can get, but I think until Jeff Wilson comes back, Raheem Mostert is going to be the guy. A-Chain is going to be number 2, but I think those roles will change in time. But he'll also get David Montgomery back. But wide receiving, I mean, that's just a bit weak for Elliott, especially from what we've seen in the past. But it doesn't really matter as much. I mean, he's putting up some this crazy point totals, and this team has as high a floor as any team in the league, and just has that explosive upside potential. So last week, I know he was also helped by Buffalo putting up 30 something. A lot of his points came from, it was like 75 came from Mostert and Buffalo combined. But yeah, I mean, this team is you can expect them to go off, and one of these guys is going to go off. At least one of these guys is going to go off in any given week, one of these keepers, for some ungodly amount of points. And CMC, I think, is a lock, like I said, for 20 at least each. 23 is his lowest. With just that, not just elite usage, because I don't even say it's not elite use. It is elite usage, but it's just extreme efficiency with elite usage is how you get some guy like CMC, and that's what we're seeing out of Pollard too. Just not as elite of efficiency as CMC. So that concludes the power rankings. That is a long. I think it's like an hour. That might be a full hour of content. Whatever. It's not content. But yeah. That's what I got for power rankings this time. Let me know what you guys think of it. But my throat's getting raspy. I need some coffee. I need to get some actual work done. So, as always, fuck yourselves, and I'll see you guys in a week. See ya.